Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here at the Irish Hotspur. We're going to be delivering you that scout report on Mickey Van de Ven. The scout reports are coming thick and fast. Spurs are moving quite quickly in the transfer market, and we're going to be letting you know whether we think this is a good signing for Tottenham Hotspur, and this could be the first center back signing. There's been a lot of news coming about that's saying that this is basically one of the first center back signings that could come through the door. It's not been confirmed yet by any means. I think Ali Gold, even just yesterday, actually put some cold water sort of on the rumors, saying that there hasn't actually been any sort of agreement or any sort of deal struck in place. But I think there has been rumors that personal terms have been agreed. Mickey Van de Ven has kind of made it clear to Wolfsburg that he would like to move over to Tottenham Hotspur. So at least we can make some sort of guess that he could be one of the first signings for Spurs. So might as well get ahead on things and give you that scout report. So everybody, do me a favor here, hit that like button, please. Leave a comment down below as to whether you think this is a good signing for Spurs and whether you think he's the right guy to be able to step in for that left-sided center back position. Just some quick sort of bio things on Mickey Van de Ven. He's 22 years old. He'll be turning 23, I believe, next season. He's still quite young. He's a center back, of course. He can play as a left back as well as a left-sided center back. We'll get into that in just a moment. He's valued around 30 million euros. That seems to be around the price that Spurs could be getting him in for, and his contract over at Wolfsburg expires in 2027. Decided to do some research on this last season for Mickey Van de Ven because it feels like he can play as a left back, he can play as a left-sided center back, and he can play as a center back and a back four on the left side. So I decided to figure out how many games he actually played in each position. And in the left-sided center back position of a back five, he actually played 8 matches last season, and these does include as well DFB Pokal matches. In terms of a back four, just playing as a normal center back on the left side of a back four, he actually played that the most. He played that over 24 different occasions. And then as a left back, he started as a left back for them at least 4 times for the likes of Wolfsburg. I could have double counted at least maybe once or twice. But everybody, if you haven't already, smash that like button for that research. Now let's compare him to all other center backs in the Bundesliga. And again, everybody, we use FBref as our source over here. And we're going to be looking at a variety of different categories. Of course, you can see different categories that would represent just sort of tackling, interceptions, what makes kind of a good defender in terms of the defensive side of things. But also, since we're playing in a very high possession team in Ange Postecoglou's system, we're going to need a guy that's very comfortable in possession, a guy that's comfortable breaking a press, also a guy that's comfortable having the ball at his feet very high up the pitch in case we're coming up against a very low block team. And then all of a sudden, he's passing it around the back inside the opponent's half. So we're going to need to have someone who's comfortable with those sort of demands. In terms of tackles, 1 per 90 compared to all center backs in the Bundesliga, he doesn't rank too well there. He's actually in the bottom half percentile compared to all people in his position. Percentage of dribblers tackled, he's a lot higher there in that regard. So it does show that while he's not making too many tackles, he's not missing too many either. So that's a good sign. Interceptions, again, really, really low. He's actually in the very bottom percentile of any center back in the Bundesliga in that marker. And that suggests, at least to me, that the fact that he's not making a ton of tackles and he's not exactly coming up with a lot of interceptions sort of looks to be maybe a more cautious defender. Also, as well, he might not be as instructed to sort of come out from the back and sweep up and win the ball. He's maybe less of an aggressive defender and could be more of an opposite type style defending maybe to a Christian Romero. When it comes to aerials 1, though, this is another sort of concern. He's in the bottom percentile there for someone who's 6 feet 4 inches. He wins 1 aerial per match, but also loses 1 per match as well. So that's about a 50% ratio there when it comes to winning an aerial versus losing an aerial. And most really strong defenders in the air, it's usually a much better ratio than that. You're also looking at areas in the pitch where he can actually help us out in terms of possession. We're looking at progressive passes, pass completion percentage, progressive carries into the final third. For the most part, he actually does exceptional in all these categories, especially when you compare him to other center backs in his position. Across the Bundesliga, he's actually close to the top 10 percentile of almost all these metrics there, apart from progressive passes. But what I would say from what I've seen with Mickey Van de Ven is that long passing is actually one of his better attributes as well. Is that I do think when he needs to clear it or when he needs to be able to just hit it long over the top and try to find someone in behind or just to sort of get it launched, he's actually quite brilliant at it. And he also has a really good switch of play on him. So I would say Mickey Van de Ven, he seems very comfortable in possession, seems very comfortable at being able to keep possession, not have to make any unnecessary risks or play any hospital passes. But what I would say that maybe other center backs might not have is that he does have that really good long ball over the top whenever you need to get out of pressure that way. It's good to see, though, despite being a very tall and lanky center back, he's very good on the ball in terms of carrying it. In terms of progressive carries into the final third, he's in the top 10 percentile of all center backs in the Bundesliga in that metric. So while maybe there's some concerns over his actual defensive ability, maybe in the fact that he doesn't seem to be the most aggressive, I could be wrong in that, but what we definitely can tell, and I think anybody who has watched him can say, is that this is a guy that's very comfortable on the ball and a guy that will be able to handle this sort of demand of an Ange Postecoglou system where you're supposed to be able to help build out from the back. You're supposed to create sort of moves from deep, but also when being put under pressure by, let's say, a Brighton, a Man City, you won't make rash decisions and you'll be able to keep possession for us and continue to help, Ange Postecoglou play the style that he wants to. Now, if we were to compare him to the center backs that he would be replacing or the center backs that he could be coming in for, I thought maybe first we start up with Ben Davies. That's just because when you look at a guy like Ben Davies, he's played as a left back, he's played as a left-sided center back, and occasionally he's played as a center back in a back four. And that's exactly what Mickey van de Ven has done this most recent season for Wolfsburg. When you look at sort of tackles won and dribblers tackled and interceptions, it's nice to see that he's actually a better defender, or at least as, coming off as a more aggressive defender than maybe Ben Davies does. But again, the fact that Ben Davies is winning more aerials than Mickey van de Ven does is a weird, sort of a conundrum, because it could be the case that he doesn't actually have nearly as many aerial battles to deal with as Ben Davies does, but it also could be the case that Mickey van de Ven maybe avoids these sort of challenges. I'm not sure. Anybody that knows maybe more a bit about his game when it comes to those aerial battles, let me know, because it is a confusing one about how he doesn't seem to stack too well to other players in his position when it comes to that metric, especially even a guy like Ben Davies, who isn't really the tallest or someone that I would associate as being that great in the air. When you look at progressive passes, yes, Mickey van de Ven is quite good at it, but Ben Davies does have more, and I think that has to do with the fact that he's probably been playing in a back three for the majority of the season, which I think gives you more opportunities to sort of kind of be that facilitator from out the back to play those passes that break the line. So maybe you might be able to have a bit better stats in that regard. Progressive carries and also carries into the final third sort of connect to what I was just saying, where he's been playing more in a back three, whereas Mickey van de Ven has been playing more in a back four. But I think it's interesting that van de Ven still compares quite well, actually, to a guy that's been playing mostly as a left-sided center back. And even at times, Ben Davies has played as a left wing back. So a lot of these sort of numbers could be a bit inflated by the various positions he's played, and also the fact that he's being asked to sort of carry the ball out a bit more, Ben Davies, than even Mickey van de Ven does. So I think for when you look at sort of the ability that he has on the ball, the fact that he is still comparing quite well to a guy like Ben Davies, who plays in a completely different system, is actually a good thing. Let's compare Clement Longley with Mickey van de Ven. Longley played 2,000 minutes last season, so I think that's enough minutes to compare them accurately. But again, sort of some concerns over some of the defensive metrics here when it comes to Van de Ven. And Longley has never really been associated as a great defender. I think most people feel like he's probably quite good on the ball. At least I think he's very good on the ball, Longley, but has some question marks over his defensive skills and his defensive reliability. And the fact that, again, sort of Van de Ven is not winning as many aerials. He's not getting as many interceptions. He's not winning as many tackles. Granted, the interceptions are close to the same, but you look at aerials as well as tackles won, just certain kind of basic defensive metrics. It is a bit strange that I think Van de Ven just seems to be very unaggressive. He doesn't seem to come out and win as nearly as many challenges as like a Romero does, but at the same time, he's not coming out and is winning as many challenges as Clement Longley does. And Longley sort of played a very different position and played in a very different system. I just feel like Van de Ven should be comparing at least slightly better. And I understand that maybe when you look at some of the metrics on the ball, like when it comes to, sort of progressive passes, carries into the final third, those sort of things, I feel like Longley is going to have a bit of an advantage just based on the system that he plays in, and that he has more opportunities to go forward, break the lines, start moves from deep, but also because he's kind of just asked to do that. I think that's part of the role of being a left-sided center back, whereas in a back four, you have to sort of pick and choose your moments when to do that. And so Van de Ven probably doesn't get as many opportunities on the ball to sort of compare, just as good with a Longley or a Davies. But when it looks to the defensive metrics and sort of defensive numbers, I think there are some big concerns here with the fact that he isn't exactly comparing too well to them. Let's go into a Mickey van de Ven summary here. I think pace and strength has been something that a lot of people have probably noticed when watching back a lot of his highlights or any of his game clips, and the pace certainly is there. I think when you look at that Union Berlin goal that he saved or blocked, it was absolutely ridiculous, that bit of athleticism that he showed there to be able to track back. But something that's maybe gone perhaps a bit unnoticed, I think undersaid, is actually his strength. I think he has sort of that Sven Botman style of defending where he can just sort of use his height, his strength, and sort of his like width and size to sort of intimidate people as well as just win the ball off people quite easily. When I look at how he's able to sort of kind of swarm defenders and kind of overwhelm them, he's able to either poke the ball away with his very long legs, or he just sort of kind of just shuts them aside with his pure strength and sort of kind of just towering sort of nature. And I feel like when it comes to those sort of things, he's going to fit into the Premier League quite well. But other things that I think make him actually a decent defender is actually his anticipation, his blocks, his clearances all seem to be quite high. And when watching back a lot of his highlights, I think you can definitely tell that he puts himself in the right place at the right time to make clearances and blocks, which is a good sign. It's not like he's just standing there doing nothing. And of course, I think when Mickey Van de Ven, maybe one of the real reasons we're going after him is actually his ability on the ball. He is spectacular at being able to carry the ball out from the back. He's very confident. He's good at being able to carrying it up the pitch without really being, put under, any sort of stress or pressure. He makes right decisions. He's very composed. He has a really good clearance on him when needed. He can play the ball over the top. He can play the ball in behind. He can break the lines from deep. He has just a really good passing range on him and has really good ball carrying skills, which is exactly what we've been needing from that left side center back position. When you look at some of his weaknesses, pointed out pretty extensively. No need to really go into it much further. Also, because I'm not exactly the best expert on Van de Ven, so I could be wrong, but I think a lot of people have pointed out that he doesn't seem to have a huge aerial prowess, and there isn't really a lot of sort of footage or anything to show that he has that aerial prowess that we hope a guy like him would for being 6 feet 4 inches. But something I guess we'll just sort of see and wait and tell, because I brought up earlier, he has that pace and the strength that's absolutely needed for this left-sided center back position in Postecoglou's back four for the Premier League. I think he has some real physical attributes that make him perfect for the Premier League. But the fact that he doesn't come across as the best in the air is definitely something that's worth noting. His concentration, I've heard, isn't always the best. I think that maybe has more to do with him being a young defender. And that's not really something I've noticed too much myself. That's just more just from doing my own research and looking at other people who might have a bit more of an expertise on the guy than I do. Decision making, I think, has been maybe something that has gone a bit wrong for him. He's made 2 errors thus far this season in the Bundesliga. That is actually, I wouldn't say a lot, but it's also not, something that you would just completely disregard. And then maybe another weakness might be the aggression. He comes across, at least when you look at stats, as well as when you just sort of see the seeing eye test with him, doesn't seem to be the most aggressive defender, sort of picks and chooses his moments to come out and win the ball. But when he does come out and win the ball, he does win it. He has a very high ratio of winning it. And he also has that, again, that pace and that strength to sort of intimidate opponents and sort of just move them off the ball quite easily. And I feel like that aggression could probably be worked on. I think he's going to need a bit more of it if he's going to really stand out as a true defender in the Premier League. But it's also like not everybody needs to be a Christian Romero and sort of clatter into people constantly. He can have his own style. He can have his own way of looking at the game. And plenty of people have vouched for the partner for Romero being a bit more calm and cool-headed. Van de Ven seems to be that guy. Now, time to give my verdict on the signing. I'm not as confident about this signing as I was maybe previous signings, and I feel like there probably is better out there actually for the money on this market when it comes to center backs. That being said, though, I can see why maybe Spurs have gone after him. We've probably mentioned before the partner for Christian Romero might need to be a bit more calm, cool-headed, but also somebody that has that pace to be able to get back and sort of track back any sort of Marcus Rashford counterattacks, any sort of speedy counterattacks from the very, very pacey players of the Premier League. I think Van de Ven absolutely fits that bill and will be a very useful player now to have around, because Christian Romero was probably the fastest defender we had in that back line. And it's not exactly, his best attribute, whereas Van de Ven now can certainly make us feel a bit more comfortable when we do get counterattacked. When not watching the Premier League, I'm often watching the Bundesliga, though, and I haven't been able to catch as much of it from last season as I normally do. But I feel like where I am a bit concerned is that Van de Ven has only had 1 season in the Bundesliga. Granted, it's been a great season for him with the likes of Wolfsburg, but I feel like where I'm a bit leaning towards more Edmund Tapsoba is because he's been around the Bundesliga for some time. I've been able to watch him under different managers, under different systems, and sort of different styles of play, and seen him thrive, I think, in all of them. And whereas Van de Ven has only played under one coach, has only had 1 season, it feels like it could be a bit soon. And so I am slightly worried with the fact that could this all be a bit too much for him too soon, going from the second division of the Dutch pyramid of football to now the, Bundesliga and only spending one season there to now going all the way to the Premier League. Again, a very, very talented player that obviously is going to be at the top of the game probably in 5-6 years. But is this all a bit too much? Is this all a bit too soon? Obviously, his lack of aerial prowess seems to be a worry for plenty, including myself. But something to maybe counter with is that Lisandro Martinez, that guy from Ajax or now current Man United defender, was absolutely highlighted for his height and maybe that lack of aerial prowess. But a lot of people, including myself, were really worried that he was going to get exposed for that. And I think maybe at times he did, but not nearly as much as we probably all originally anticipated. So the fact that Van de Ven is a lot taller than a Lisandro Martinez, and maybe the fact that Lisandro Martinez didn't struggle nearly as much in the air as we all thought he would in the Premier League, makes me feel like it's something that is worth noting, his lack of aerial prowess, Van de Ven's, but maybe not also, making a huge deal of it, because it could be better than we might realize. His strengths obviously seem to be in possession. He actually seems very talented in that regard. I would probably say it's one of his best attributes. He looks like he could play center back quite confidently in a back four, but I think still has a lot of developing to do. So I could see him actually thriving sort of straight away if Postecoglou were to consider him as a left back in his system, because what we might need is somebody who's going to have that Kyle Walker type defensive role where they're able to take on, very good wingers that are very pacey, always looking to get in behind. And he's a guy that can get forward Van de Ven quite confidently, but he can also be more of that defensive option if need be at left back, especially if Udogie doesn't make it as a left back, considering he's played more as a left wing back in his development throughout his career. So I feel like Van de Ven, if he wants maybe playing time straight away, and if there's a position that I could see him thriving in right away, it'd be maybe a sort of a Dan Burn type left back in this Postecoglou back four. Let me know if he could play sort of a Dan Burn type role where he's very defensive left back, but also is responsible for still, getting forward from time to time. So if Mickey Van de Ven is actually being brought in as sort of a Ben Davies type replacement, where he's sort of used as a left back and occasionally as a center back, but isn't supposed to be the main star center back signing for this summer, then I actually really approve of this signing. I think this could be a great one. If this is supposed to be the best or most proven center back that we're going to be bringing in this summer, I'm a little worried. I'm a little skeptical because I just feel like there's better out there. I think there's David Hanchko, who's over at Feyenoord. You also have as well, I believe his name is Lukeba over at Olympique Lyon. There's plenty of talented left-sided center backs in the market right now that are sort of all in and around, I think, that 30 million euro price tag. And if you're going to go after one of them as sort of the proven sort of maybe star center back of the future to partner Romero, not sure Van de Ven is the guy right now for that role. But everybody, give me your thoughts on Mickey Van de Ven, and let me know if you think this is a signing that actually gets you excited. Let me know if this is a signing that you're actually skeptical about, whether you actually think he can step in to be that main center back to partner Romero. And also let me know if I left anything out when it comes to the player in those comments down below. Smash the like button if you enjoyed, everybody. Feel free to grab a membership if you do want to support the channel with everything we put out there for you guys. But as always, come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange I trust. And welcome to Tottenham Hotspur, potentially Mickey Van de Ven.